When we returned to the Curve of the S in early 2006, we found the monument even more sculpted by 7 years of heavy rain and fierce sun. 4 trunks had already fallen. To avoid any danger to visitors, the landless movement invite us to renew the monument to celebrate 10 years of resistance since the massacre. We want to mark 10 years of struggle for justice, conclude the mutilated survivors and widows. But today, we need a monument to life within our own community. We need both, intervenes their leader, Josimar. The world is heating up. Our region is parched. Our world monument still has meaning. We decide to create the second edition as a training process in collective production for young leaders in the pedagogical camp beside the monument. Daniel, from the settlement's health sector, assesses the strength of each Brazil nut trunk. 12 are fragile. Floods make it impossible to travel between the selected trunks and the site of the massacre. Political tensions in the region complicate fundraising. Let's prioritize the creation of a new monument in the settlement square, we decide. We begin an arts education for human rights course for 60 educators. Many survived the massacre. We transform the church into a laboratory for pedagogical dialogue and artistic experimentation. In 3 days of life stories and cultural literacy workshops, we dance and dramatize the legacies of the massacres, of exclusion, illiteracy, and armed violence. Removed from the daily demands of survival, the teachers become sensitive. Little by little, locked stories and barricaded bodies are transformed into pedagogical texts and the confidence to listen and dialogue. What monument are we going to build together, we ask. The workshop chooses to plant a circle of 24 Brazil nut saplings in the agroecological village square. To symbolize Paulo Freire's pedagogy of dialogue, the green monument of dreams will complement the charred monument of massacre. The widows, mutilated survivors, teachers, and each class plant a collective sapling to cultivate a future of care and ecological sensitivity. The school principal who participated with her teachers in the art education course gives herself completely to the ritual. Inspired by the workshop, Evagno, coordinator of culture, gathers together young people to launch a new book by the mutilated survivors about their human rights. The silent human sculptures of poetic protest fascinate and enchant the community. High school pupils form a cultural group to transform their fragmented and violated village into a new community. We end projecting photos of the creation of the first monument. "It's me," smiles a young teacher, "there, passing burnt oil. She now has 2 children." Some teachers recognize themselves in the teenagers painting the stones. "We, the children who survived the massacre," says Fernanda, youth coordinator of the group, "are massacring ourselves with drugs, teenage pregnancy, and suicide. We have to start with us." What a coincidence! We are 19, much less than the number of participants in 1999, I reflect in the first meeting in August. 16 young people, Josimar, Evagno, and Raimundo, a leader of land occupations. "But we know what to do," says Josimar. "We will need a lot of water," smiles Fernanda. "It's pure dust on the curve of the S." We choose tree chunks more powerful and poetic than the originals. "This edition has to cry out about the drought," insists Josimar during 5 days selecting the trunks. The former mayor and businessman from Eldorado dos Carajás even help. The environmental question affects everyone. Young people start painting with burnt oil, playing boys dressed in skirts, and enjoying their intimate training camp. They have no experience of collective work, and avoid heavy tasks. Evagna whispers, "Do you think this is possible?" Another team returns with the first of 10 carts of stones that will support the erected, aligned trunks. This work tires the young people and challenges us to find an intervention to cultivate independent motivation. I deal with crashed cars on the road, not tree trunks. The necessary care to lift the heavy trunks without damaging their tops and surfaces, guiding them between those still standing, sensitizes the crane drivers. The weight of the trunks even lifts the truck off its wheels. The drivers ask us to photograph their creativity. Our appreciation of the epic scale of this process is mixed with growing concern about the high cost of renting the cranes. The project is funded by donations from poor communities and international allies, but nobody hurries. We proceed with intense calm. Once positioned, we guide and align the trunks with collective care. No one needs to comment on the pedagogy of cooperation that's reshaping our reflexes. We joke about any prejudice that arises in the humour that punctuates the process. Shall we cement the trunks tonight? The quick consultation motivates. Yes, let's do it, decide the young people. With the last Brazil nut trees in position, we pause in the affectionate light of late afternoon to document another historic step. Luciano climbs onto the crane's arm to untie the rope. Everybody watches his growing courage. Each young person is discovering his or her abilities and those of others. A culture of collective respect is gradually replacing the old culture of inhibition and low self-esteem. Look at our work against the dusk sky. The theatrical lighting inspires us to appreciate our personal and collective power, transforming the mutilated self-esteem of us all. Stop, stop! We take a photo of each youth struggling with a sack of cement to humanize this heavy work. To relax, I invite the entire team to watch images of the process and make decisions about its documentation. Laughter, fascination, whispered readings, quiet pride. Imagine what we can do with these images, a memory for everyone. Posters, calendars, a campaign to register the monument as a national artistic and educational heritage. But what will we name the second edition? Silence. Cry of the martyrs, one proposes. Cry of life. Cry of the future. We decide to resume the discussion in the evening. Young people come back exhausted from carrying stones. I never worked so hard. I won't survive, Fernanda jokes. But the collective physical effort is motivating each one to discover and overcome their limits, creating bonds of deep commitment. The process changes the conception of what girls and boys can do. Both discover the persistence and physical coordination of women in this masculine work. I never worked with cement, now I know how to build a house. The girls continue to challenge the entire team, increasing their productivity. The young people are now completely attuned to a unified motivation. Each individual finds an appropriate corner within the collective process. Quietly, Evagnu takes care to finish the cement once the holes are filled. I leave the final layer slanted so that the rain can escape and it won't rot the Brazil nut trees. It becomes almost impossible to align the trunks accurately against the dusk sky, but we continue. We have to release the big crane because of the costs. After dinner, the team rests at the bar next to the monument. Soraya, 20 years old, Fernanda's sister, tells a story for the first time. I fled the gunfire and was lost for 3 days, sheltered by an unknown family. Everyone listens, astonished. The father prepared my funeral. She inspires many stories which revive the debate over the name of the second edition. Cry of the future, says Fernanda. It says it all. We approve the name and return to the monument. The team enters its final rhythm. They sing, switch roles and play. The end is in sight. Some relax, exhausted. The next day, we wake early to clean up everything. Fernanda notes that the final trunk needs a lick of paint. "I'm addicted," she jokes. While Fernanda and Evagna take care of the final touches, the young team prepares a ritual of inauguration. Evagna gathers the youth right in the heart of the monument to film a playful collective interview. On this September 11, 5 years after the bombing of the Twin Towers in New York, and 28 years after the bombing of the elected socialist government of Salvador Allende in Chile, we turned the impossible possible. Guys, who wants to tell our story of Cry of the Future, the second edition of the Castañeras of Eldorado dos Carajás?